Week 11 Power Rankings. Welcome back to JM Football. My name is Justin Penik. Dalton Feely is alongside of me. Hey, we got a little bit of a different list today. The NFL is getting kooky. We're getting kookier as the season goes on. Dalton Feely, how you doing?
I'm doing good. This list is probably the weirdest one we've had in terms of like how teams have played. The NFL's doing its NFL thing, and I'm very excited to talk about it today.
You have teams that are starting or not even starting. You've had teams that have been in like the playoffs, you better be there tier, and the Lombardi Land tier that are like not legit, like not in the playoffs. And then you have teams that like, if you really like put a gun to my head, I'm telling you, the Pittsburgh Steelers are not a good team, but they're very much in the playoffs. So it's like bad teams are good teams are bad, and this is the NFL.
Crazy. And then Lombardi Land and Williams-ville, the smallest list we've put together for those two tiers. So
it's 4 teams, each tier, respectively.
Those middle tiers are starting to clump up because we don't know what's going on, and neither does the NFL.
All right, so let's start off with Williams-ville, like we always do. The Carolina Panthers are at 32. The New York Giants are at 31. The Bears are at 30. The Patriots are at 29. Hey, race to the number 1 overall pick. Feel bad for the Panthers that they don't have a first-round pick.
All I'm saying is, Penik and I, while we're making this list today, we were arguing who's the worst team in football. Right now, I think it's the Giants. Right now, we're keeping the Panthers at 32, and it's basically, let's see how the Panthers look versus the Cowboys, since the Giants looked horrendous versus the Cowboys last week. And the Giants played the Commanders. They beat them last time. The last time they faced in MetLife. This time it's probably Tommy DeVito. Right? Tommy DeVito's still under center for the Giants, so we'll see how they look. Panthers look good. They might not be in the basement spot anymore.
Yeah, my reasoning for having the Giants not last, can't believe we're talking about my reasoning for not having the Giants last is because I do think when Tyrod Taylor comes back, I don't think they're the worst team in the league.
Okay.
And they're playing their third-string UDFA quarterback right now, and that's not their ideal situation for sure. Let's move on to the thank you next tier.
Shout out Ariana Grande, baby. You didn't pause!
I didn't pause.
Wow!
We have the Arizona Cardinals. Kyler Murray is back. Thank you. Coming from a Giants fan, thank you, Cardinals, for winning. Tennessee Titans are at 27. The Green Bay Packers are at 26. The Commanders are at 25. The Las Vegas Raiders, 2-0, Antonio Pierce. Look out. Are they 500?
They're 5-5. Yeah.
Again, weird. The team that's 500 is 24th, but continue to prove it to us, Raiders. We want to talk about the Arizona Cardinals, so Kyler Murray comes back.
Welcome back, Kyler Murray. That's so awesome. I mean, gets a W in his first game back. He hadn't played a game in 335 days. He tore his ACL, I think, in December versus New England last season. Good for Kyler. This was a real prove-it moment. It's like, you're coming back under a year with that ACL injury. You're a starting quarterback who's a mobile quarterback, so running is a really important thing. And he looked, and especially in his first game back, he looked really good. Snapped the Cardinals' 6-game losing streak, which is fantastic. Cardinals were 1-13 without Kyler Murray. He comes back. They're 1-0 with Kyler Murray right now. I'm excited to see what the Cardinals, they're going to win games.
They're going to win more games.
They're going to win games. Like that team, they were competitive with Josh Dobbs until like the fourth quarter. Like they would fall apart in the fourth quarter. Now with Kyler being back, like they will find ways to win games. They might be like a 4-win, 5-win team come the end of the year.
And my question, hey, sound off in the comments, YouTube. My overall question is, what happened that Kyler Murray a couple years ago was seen as a top 10 quarterback, right? I mean, undoubtedly, Kyler Murray, hey, he does fun things, and he was seen, like, maybe you're not the Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes of the world, but he's up there. Got that contract.
Right.
What happened that now I feel like I've blinked, and Kyler Murray is suddenly this guy that you just can't have on your team that everybody in the media is so desperate to get out of Arizona?
I think it's, in my personal opinion, I think it's his persona. Like the way he represents himself. And then the issue was the gaming. I'm not a video gamer, so
well, they put that clause. Remember, this is the thing that I always go back to that people don't talk about. Remember that clause that they put in his contract that he has to do film study?
Yes, that he has to do film study.
And then the Cardinals got bullied out of taking it out, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, 100%.
Why did they take it out?
Why did they?
Yeah.
Because they were bullied into it.
Because they were bullied in, but like, why? Okay, just because
you're making a huge investment into your quarterback, $230 million worth of an investment into your quarterback. You want to make sure he's doing stuff. Now, granted, you if you're making that type of investment, you want to have trust with him that he will do his film study himself. But that said, like, I'm with you. We should have kept it in.
He's still a talented guy. I mean, if he doesn't work hard, if he doesn't apply himself, then that is totally different. And you need a quarterback that does that.
Yeah.
But I didn't really understand the hurry of you have to get Kyler Murray out of here, because it's not like he's not a talented quarterback. You can move. I mean, hey, if they want to move him, I'm not saying, oh, you can't move him because he's really good. If he doesn't apply himself, if he doesn't work hard, if he doesn't do the film study, then he's not the quarterback for you, especially under this new regime. But I don't think there's a rush.
I think that's the big thing too. We talk about Kyler Murray not being potentially not being a Cardinal. It was because that Monty Austin-Fort comes in his first year general manager for the Cardinals. Yeah. He's not the guy who drafted Kyler Murray or gave him that big contract. Cardinals also have 2 first-round picks coming into 2024 in a class that has Caleb Williams and Drake May.
But they're probably not going to be in a position to
now. We would expect them not to be in it. And the pick that they have, the other pick, is the Texans pick. They're 5-4, so it's not like it's a top-tier pick anymore either. So going into the season, you would expect, I think most, including myself, expected Cardinals not to be great because Kyler was out. Texans not to be great because C.J. Stroud, young team. Both those teams are surprisingly decent. And I will say, with Kyler, I think it was more of a not as much talent thing, but more so who he is kind of thing in terms of why we value him a little bit less than those franchise top-tier quarterbacks. But one of the things I always remember, this is fantasy related, when I had Kyler Murray all the time, first half, I feel like the Cardinals offense wasn't the same. It would be more stagnant.
Yeah.
Second half, I feel like they would find, it's like, oh, the game started. I want to shout out Trey McBride in that game. 8 for 131. Career game. 8 for 131. Amazing. First tight end for the Cardinals to finish with over 100 yards since 1989.
Wow.
Again, first Cardinals tight end to have a 100-yard receiving game since 1989. Shout out Trey McBride. Colorado State?
Colorado State.
Let's go. Good
Senior Bowl guy, I think. Probably didn't go to the Senior Bowl. Any tight end that's good. A lot of the players that I like in the draft, it's just I associate with the Senior Bowl because I go to the Senior Bowl.
Right. Love that.
All right, so let's move to the mid-mammoth tier. We have the Falcons at 23, Colts at 22, 21 Broncos, 20 we have the Tampa Bay Bucks, 19 we have the LA Rams, the Saints are at 18, the Jets are at 17. Dalton, there's a lot of teams that are now entering this mid-mammoth tier. This is probably the most teams that we've had, and I think it's for good reason.
It's either teams that are surprisingly good, but we still don't really believe in them, or it's teams that should be better and they're playing not as well.
Yeah.
And
if anything, I'm gonna give an argument. Cardinals have 2 wins. Titans have a rookie quarterback. I would even feel comfortable putting the Packers, Commanders, and the Raiders in this mid-mammoth tier. If you really just looking record-wise.
I wouldn't put the Packers in that list.
Sure.
Jordan Love hasn't been great. I think they're 3-6. They've struggled.
So then give me the Commanders
and Raiders, yeah. Because Commanders and Raiders, Commanders are 4-5. Raiders are 5-5. Yeah. They've been serviceable. I think it's just in the way they've lost in the past have made the value to me make them appear to be worse than they are. And I'm still worried about the Raiders.
That's almost 10 teams
the Raiders
that we're putting in a mid-mammoth tier.
And that's because it's rightfully so. And that's the NFL going into week 11, which is crazy. Little love for the Broncos. I mean, go Monday Night Football. You're playing the Buffalo Bills. Catch a W. Yeah. Game-winning field goal by Will Lutz to win the game. 24-22. Amazing. I want to say Broncos defense gives up 70 points week 3 versus the Miami Dolphins. We're talking about the Sean Payton era and not being great.
They're on a historically bad, this is good. This is going to be a defense that's historically bad.
And then all of a sudden, the last 2 games, they played the Chiefs when Mahomes is sick. Granted, I get it. And they play the Bills and Josh Allen. Win both those games. Field Yates put out a tweet, and I want to read it verbatim so I get this right. Last 2 weeks, they give up 210.5 yards per game passing, 1 touchdown, 4 interceptions, 31 points allowed combined in those 2 games, 15.5 points per game against 2 of what should be the top offenses in the NFL. Broncos
top
defense, 2 of the top quarterbacks. Broncos defense, Vance Joseph gets a lot of love. They're 4-5, I believe.
Yeah.
Yes, they're 4-5. They're in there too. They're somehow still in AFC contention.
Russ made some jaw-dropping, extend the plays, yep. Like we know that Russell Wilson can do. It doesn't look as pretty as it once did, I will say, but hey, he was extending the play last night. That Courtland Sutton throw to extend the play, go to your left, and then that throw and catch. That was the most improbable completion in the next gen stats era. Like
really,
it was like a 3-point-something% completion on that. So
hang it in the Louvre. I mean, that was reminiscent of Russell with Seattle, Tyler Lockett, Doug Baldwin back in those days.
That was
fantastic.
I believe that throw and catch you're referring to was the second most improbable completion ever in the next gen stats era. So Russell Wilson on the end of both of those, and the Broncos are starting to win some games. It doesn't look pretty, but hey, I mean, they have to win because they don't have draft picks. They're paying Russell Wilson a lot of money. They also gave up draft picks for Sean Payton too, which is something that's not talked about enough.
Right.
They have to win football games, or at least they have to try to win football games, and certainly they're having a better second half of the season than the first half of the season.
Won 3 in a row.
Let's move to the playoffs. Why not tier, where we have the Chargers at 16, the Vikings at 15, the Texans at 14, the Steelers at 13, Jaguars at 12, Seahawks at 11.
Listen, when I'm wrong, I'll admit it. I don't try to hide. If I don't bring it up, I'm sorry. I usually try to admit when I'm wrong. Minnesota Vikings, good on you. I was wrong about Minnesota, especially early on. That defense was horrendously bad. They weren't winning the close games as they did last year. I've always been a fan of O'Connell and Kwesi, that tier of general manager and head coach. I think those guys are underrated group. Kwesi being a very analytical guy, and O'Connell, I think he's an underrated coach, potential coach of the year candidate, mind you. But the Vikings, they won their 5th straight game. They're 6-4, and this is now without Kirk Cousins and Josh Dobbs. I mean, Josh Dobbs, amazing. Yeah. He's the first player in NFL history with at least 400 passing yards, 100 rushing yards, and no picks in his first 2 games with the team. And he did it coming to a team right before the trade deadline, has to come in 5 days in advance against the Falcons game. Another big win. They're up 24 at half versus New Orleans Saints, who were probably the favorites or one of the top 2 favorites in the NFC South. The Vikings team, NFC North, I know the Lions are there. The Lions are going to probably win a division, but the Vikings, they look like a wild card team. That defense.
They do look like a wild card team. Complementary football. That's really what it is. Because last year, the Vikings defense was one of the worst in the league, if not the worst, because their pass defense was just Swiss cheese. It was really bad. And now Brian Flores has that unit playing a whole lot better, and Josh Dobbs taking care of the football. And something that I was kind of going on Pro Football Reference saying what is Josh Dobbs doing? I even did a little bit for Kyler Murray too in his debut, some of the advanced stats. So I don't know how much I love this stat, but the on target percentage for Pro Football Reference, they track how many of your throws are on target or not. Usually you'll see high 60s, low 70s as it's all right, and then you'll see some quarterbacks in the mid 70s, and it's you're on target. That's the top quarterbacks. Josh Dobbs through 2 games with the Minnesota Vikings, 90% on target rate. With a less than 3 or 4% bad throw rate, which is that's really, really good. I know that's not a stat that everybody talks about all the time, but it's really good compared to a lot of other quarterbacks that you see, and even on just any given game. This is 2 game short sample size, but still 90% through 2 games. I mean, he's been accurate. He's taking care of the ball, and I also think you're seeing the added element of mobility to the Minnesota offense that Kirk Cousins didn't offer. You're seeing that really pay off too for this Minnesota offense, and seeing how that can, just add another element to that offense and to Josh Dobbs' game. So, and Justin Jefferson will be coming back within the next couple weeks, which is fun.
I do want to see what the Vikings defense, the Brian Flores effect is real. Since starting 0-3, they've allowed the 4th fewest points per game, 5th in defensive EPA, and 7th in yards per game allowed. They've been a really good unit. This is a unit that doesn't have Zadarius Smith anymore or Dalvin Tomlinson. Danielle Hunter has been one of the best pass rushers in football again. A secondary, which I was really scared about going into the year, and even through the first 3 games, has really turned it up, had a couple picks versus Jameis and the Saints last week. Josh Dobbs,
they're a fun team.
They're a fun team. They're a unique team, fun team.
And they're playing better football.
Yeah.
I mean, they had the 20. It was still it was a 1-score game by the end of it, right?
Yeah, they did not blew it, but it was, the lead was cut from 24-8. They won 27-19.
But they still are playing better football where they're not relying on winning the 1-score games and stuff like that. So
I feel bad for Kirk, man. Kirk was playing really well until he got hurt. And he had been an Iron Man.
Finally got the good defense too.
Yeah.
But I'm happy for the Vikings. I'm happy for Josh Dobbs. He's a guy that, he's fun to root for.
Yeah, and everyone seems to love him.
Yeah. The Houston Texans, speaking of guys that are fun to root for, the Houston Texans and C.J. Stroud, they continue to do fun stuff. They upset the Bengals in a huge upset win on the road. Talk to me about these Houston Texans.
I mean, these two teams, potential coach of the year candidates between D'Amico Ryans of the Texans and Kevin O'Connell of the Vikings. But man, CJ Stroud, back-to-back game-winning drives. This is amazing. Yeah. And turning a franchise around. Texans are 5-4. It's the first time they've been above 500 since week 1 of 2021. This is amazing. It just also shows how valuable the quarterback position is. Yeah. Because if you have that right guy, he can really flip the switch. Stroud's the only rookie in the last 40 years to lead game-winning drives under the final 2 minutes in back-to-back games.
No.
It's been 40 years. He's the first guy to do it. He's also leading the NFL in yards per game, passing. He would be the first rookie since 1939 to do it. This is real. I know Rose and Bobby talked about it on Football Today yesterday. Yeah. CJ Stroud is a legitimate NFL MVP, and I think through week 10, I really think he would win MVP right now, especially turn around the Texans how they've been. He's been an efficient passer. He's got a great touchdown to interception rate. He's thrown for the most yards per game. Texans make the playoffs, and Stroud looked this good. He would be the first rookie quarterback to ever win MVP, and I'm putting my hat in. I'm like, I agree. I'm all for it.
I'm still leaning Tyreek Hill a little bit more. I think the fact that I try and remove, when you're talking about MVP, I try and remove the fact that it's a rookie, so it makes it so much more impressive.
Fair.
Versus an MVP, you shouldn't give bonus points to a guy just because he's a rookie.
Right.
So I like, for me, it's still Tyreek Hill, and I'm still putting the guys that are just above him in EPA per play and CPOE and stuff like that. Which that is how that works, by the way. Like, if you just look at the trends, probably the people that are casting votes for MVP aren't looking at EPA per play. Maybe they are, but usually the guys that are first, second, third, like it usually matches who wins the MVP every single year. And CJ Stroud, he's not first. He's definitely top 10. I don't even know if he's top 5. But it's incredible. It's incredible. And one thing I want to look up right now is I want to look up just the sheer number of pass plays of 20-plus yards, because C.J. Stroud and the Houston Texans have to be up there.
Oh, my gosh.
Now, I will say, C.J. Stroud is number 1, and this is from Ben Solik. C.J. Stroud has more throws, which he's standing on one hash, throwing 20-plus yards downfield to the opposite numbers in the opposite part of the field, which, hey, I mean, that's what San Fran, that's what, I think I've seen a little bit more with Miami, down in Miami with Tua kind of rolling out to one side and then throwing it to the opposite side of the field. And the difference between, I think we just got breaking news.
Oh, breaking news. We never had one of this before.
Look up and see if Ken Dorsey is out as offensive coordinator for the Buffalo Bills. I need you to look this up right now.
Ken Dorsey is out.
All right. Well, we'll talk about it. Yep. I want to finish off with talking about C.J. Stroud. You see it usually in like Miami. You see it sometimes in San Fran. But the difference between those teams is that you have Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, right, George Kittle. I mean, I feel like you have the island of misfit toys where teams were sometimes a little afraid to take Tank Dell because of how small he was, even though he was super electric from Houston.
Yeah.
Noah Brown, who was a backup wide receiver for Dallas. Dalton Schultz, who
another Dallas Cowboy,
another Dallas Cowboy. Another Robert Woods, another receiver that's kind of bounced around a little bit.
John Mechie.
Nico Collins,
who didn't play this game. He was out, but
he's been good.
He's been great. He's been fantastic.
So I feel like you have the island of misfit toys, and CJ Stroud is 100% making it work. I want to check and see where they are in explosive pass.
And while you say that, like like you said, he's elevated the talent around him. Like when we talk about value, like being able to bring the guys who may not be, as you said, like the misfit of toys, and being a winning team, it's a very impressive thing, especially as a rookie. Noah Brown, season high, 172 yards in this game. The Texans outgained the Bengals. Again, the Bengals, pretty solid offense, pretty solid defense. They had turned it around, 4-game winning streak, I believe, going into this game versus Houston. Cincinnati was outgained 544 yards to 380. The Houston Texans offense put up 544 yards in Cincinnati. I mean, that's got to be said. I'm very excited for this Houston team. They Penik, I really believe it. I think they have a chance to win the AFC South, especially with how Lawrence and that offense has looked recently. I know they're on a winning streak. They're coming off the bye. They get smacked. We'll talk about that later. Texans have a chance to actually win this division.
I also think they have a chance to do something in the playoffs too. If they get there. I mean, what is really dependent on, like, what are you depending on in the playoffs? I feel like you're depending on good quarterback play.
Yeah.
I know there's offensive line elements of it too, and if CJ Stroud's been avoiding pressure really well too. And
that was his downfall, was avoiding pressure and play under pressure at Ohio State. Not the case in Houston, which is massive for his development.
So that's one thing I want to take a look at. Like, can the Houston Texans actually maybe win a playoff game, make some noise in the playoffs? Because if you look at how playoff teams have been built in the past, that's been elite pass rushers. Those pass rushers that have been able to even get to elite quarterbacks, those have been the teams that have won Super Bowls. So can CJ Stroud, win against those elite defenses and elite pass rushers? Because we know that he's explosive, and I have the explosive play numbers finally. They're number one in the league. Them in Minnesota. 43 plays of 20-plus yards this year.
Penik, I'm going to say it now. I'm going to clip it. I was debating about saying it. I'm going to say it. You can make fun of me if I'm wrong. I'll admit if I'm wrong. The Houston Texans are winning the AFC South. I've locked it in. I've decided. Here's who the Texans have left on their schedule. This was my tie-breaking moment. They have the Arizona Cardinals. Should probably beat the Cardinals next week. Then they play the Jaguars. That's the game that decides it right there.
Yeah.
Decides it right there. They're playing at Houston, which is huge. They play Denver. They can beat Denver. The Jets, Tennessee, Cleveland. That would be a tough one. Tennessee, Indianapolis. A lot of winnable games on that schedule.
Yeah.
A lot of winnable games on that schedule.
Are they playing Baltimore at all? Did you say Baltimore?
I did not, but Jacksonville plays Baltimore. Jacksonville has Tennessee, Houston, Cincy, Cleveland, Baltimore.
Because I have a feeling
easy. Tampa, Carolina, Tennessee.
I have a feeling like whoever wins the North will probably play the Houston Texans in the first round of the playoffs.
Whoever wins the North plays the Houston Texans. Okay.
That's my prediction.
So you don't think they're going to win the division? You think Jacksonville will win the division?
Oh. Or you can have a Browns-Texans first round. Because if they win
4 or 5
the South,
right. Okay.
And that's an elite defense, that's an elite pass rush. So
be fun.
So they're playing. So Texans do play the Browns in a couple weeks,
right? And they do. Christmas Eve.
Really excited for that game now.
Yeah.
Really excited. Credit to us, pat on the back. Jags were the hottest team in the NFL. You got to have them higher. They're not very good. Sorry. Not very good. That offense, the defense is still fine. I think the defense is still fine, but very, very frustrating offense. And I'm one of those people. Like I thought Trevor Lawrence could win MVP this year, and I thought Calvin Ridley could catapult them to get up there. It just has not worked on the offensive side of the ball. True with Trevor Lawrence.
Calvin Ridley over his last 4 games has 13 catches and 138 yards. Not going to do it. Not going to do it. We will talk about the Jaguars a little bit later when we mention that Niners-Jaguars game, but we are going to move over to our playoffs. You better be there.
Playoffs, you better be there. We have the Bills at 10. We have the Browns at 9. Dolphins at 8. Bengals at 7. Lions at 6. Cowboys at 5. We weren't initially going to talk about this, but we have breaking news. Ken Dorsey out as offensive coordinator for the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, I mean, listen, when you're struggling offensively to keep drives moving, not putting up the points that you've had in the past, you got to make a change at some point. We saw it a little bit last year where there was frustrations on that Bills offense. We saw where Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen, there's a little turmoil in that offense where Diggs is like, get me the ball. I need the ball. I need the ball. I need the ball. And it's kind of carried over this year. The one thing, not numbers-based, I'm a numbers guy, stats is my background. The one thing I will say with the Bills offense when I'm looking at it, the eye test, they seem to move a lot better when they're in hurry up, when they're going a little bit no huddle. Doesn't mean you have to run to the line and go right away, but just no huddle. Don't let the defense sub. It seemed they had one drive where they answered back from Denver last night where they scored a touchdown right away. And then extra point was an offsides. They got the 2-point conversion to Gabe Davis. Like the Bills, there's 2 offenses they show. It's the slow, stagnant offense where they can't move the ball down the field or turn the ball over. And then there's that hurry up, non-subbing offense where they move the ball flawlessly and score touchdowns.
Do you know who the interim offensive coordinator will be?
Joe Brady's not there anymore. Is it Joe Brady?
Joe Brady.
Wow, good look at that. That's a ball knower right there, baby.
You're obviously not going to change your entire offense, but I am excited for Joe Brady.
So this is his second time calling plays, right? He was with Carolina previously.
Yeah.
I'm curious. I mean, he was with that LSU offense when it was really good.
And that's like he was the hot name in the streets of, he was going to go from LSU and then he was going to go to Matt Rule's Carolina Panthers and he was going to, be quickly catapulted to a head coaching job a couple years ago. So I am excited to see what Joe Brady can do. But again, I don't think it's going to be his offense per se. I still think they're going to run a relatively very similar offense. So yeah, Here's the thing with Ken Dorsey. I like Ken Dorsey. Our guys that cover one for the Bills definitely have been a little critical of him, just of route concepts being a little too basic, not attacking the defense properly. Certainly, they felt the losing Brian Dable, but also even last night. I don't think Ken Dorsey was fired on last night's performance because you had dropped balls, that went for interceptions, fumbles, and then even like. Now, here's the problem with the Josh Allen interception that he threw that little comeback route on the sideline. Eli Manning was even saying it on the Manning-cast. That's a really tough throw to make.
Yeah.
And both guys both receivers on both sidelines were running those deep comeback routes, those deep out routes, and it's just a really tough throw for quarterbacks to make. And Josh Allen does not seem to be wired the same the last 2 years that he was when Brian Dable was play caller. But even I will say, as a little bit of defensive Ken Dorsey. There was even turmoil when Brian Dable was offensive coordinator over there about McDermott and Dable possibly not getting along. And shit like that. So look, I'm not defending Ken Dorsey, but also there's been between head coach and coordinator, there has been butting of heads over the last couple years there. But I will say, if this is how bad the offense is with Josh Allen, the offense cannot be this man. So a change did have to be made.
I will say my last note on that, two things real quick. One, 6 straight games with an interception. That's the longest since Ryan Fitzpatrick in 2011. Wow. Kind of crazy of a streak for that. But number 2, usually when an offensive coordinator is fired, that is like I don't want to say the last straw, but that is like a telltale sign that the head coach, the seat's really warm right now.
Really? For McDermott?
If they don't make the playoffs, Penik, like I'm not saying I'm going to lean if they don't make the playoffs, he's out. Like I think they might make that change. That's Dorsey's the fall guy and the right fall guy for this current situation. They don't make the playoffs.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
I don't know.
That's pretty crazy. We're going to talk about a few more teams. What do we want to go to? Let's just go to Lombardi Land. Let's talk about this Ravens-Browns matchup.
So we got 4. We got the Baltimore Ravens. Number 3, the San Francisco 49ers, the Schlacking in Jacksonville. 2, the Kansas City Chiefs on bye, and number 1, the Philadelphia Eagles also on bye. So a little quicker of a Lombardi Land, quick touching of the Browns and Ravens and Niners, Jags. What a comeback by the Browns.
Yeah.
I mean, let me ask you this, Penik. Do you think this was more credit to the Browns or discredit of the Ravens?
I think it's a little bit of discredit to the Ravens.
Okay.
Because all 3 of the Ravens' losses this year, and this is what worries about me about a team like the Baltimore Ravens, is that sometimes they can have these ass-kicking moments where they're kicking ass, they're taking names, doing everywhere they got to do. The Ravens' win probability peaked at 96.7% when leading 31-17 early in the fourth quarter during the Week 10 game against the Browns. This is according to Next Gen. Ravens have had at least an 85% win probability in all 3 of their losses this year. And that's what worries me. If you're losing close games, losing games that you should be winning, you can't go undefeated. You can't win every game. I get it. But these games where you should be taking control and you can't pull them out, that's really, it's tough for me. And I think that kind of thing can manifest itself and show its ugly head in the postseason.
I completely agree with you in terms of the Ravens. I still feel comfortable them representing the AFC because that's how good they could be. But
could is the word, and that's been the issue.
Right.
Where I have been a Ravens and Lamar stan. This isn't even about Lamar. I've been a Ravens stan for the last how many years because I'm waiting for Lamar to finally make a Super Bowl, make a playoff run, and could has been the magic word for the Baltimore Ravens. And it's frustrating as a team. I like them and I root for them. You know?
I will say, blown leads has been their thing. The Ravens have blown a league-high 9 games with a 7-point lead in the fourth quarter since 2021. In 7 of their 10 regular season losses dating back to 2022, they've squandered those 2-possession leads. 7 of their 10 losses, 2-possession leads they've blown. 70% of their losses since 2022, they've blown a double-digit lead.
Yeah.
That's bonkers. The one stat I saw, and I said this too because I got giddy. I saw it. I forgot where I saw it, so I would give credit. I think it was Good Morning Football that put it out there, but Baltimore has trailed the third least amount of time through their first 10 games over the last 40 years. Of teams compared to the last 40 years, which is bonkers. The other 4 teams in the top 5, all of them either won the Super Bowl or made the Super Bowl. Great company. They're also all 10-0. Baltimore Ravens 7-3 because they've blown leads. Yeah. So the big difference. give credit real quick to the Browns too. Like Deshaun Watson, 14 for 14 in the second half. Doesn't throw an incompletion versus a really good Ravens defense. Lamar ball gets tipped, pick 6. Greg Newsome returns it. Browns' first win against an AFC North opponent when trailing by 14 plus points ever.
Wow.
They were 0-59-1 going into Sunday. And the Browns hadn't won a game when they were down 14 in the fourth quarter since 2014. I give credit to this Browns team. Like this is a resilient win.
They're good.
You're on the road,
a good team.
a divisional opponent. We've said Deshaun's held them back. This was a good game from him. He was using his legs even with his ankle banged up. I'm excited. Like this defense is really good. Like this is a really good defense. The offense, if we can limit the turnovers, can be solid. Jerome Ford, Kareem Hunt in the running game, a little thunder and lightning. I'm excited about this Browns. I'm like, okay, that was a prove-it game, and they did it.
They worked in Elijah Moore. Amari Cooper is just inevitable. He's just so good. And that ground game is really, really good too. And this isn't a shot at. I know I like to take shots at Deshaun Watson, but it's just how good their ground game is. Their ground game was more efficient than their passing game this past week. Kevin Stefanski, we've known for years that if there's one thing that Stefanski really does well, it's probably one of the best running schemes in the National Football League, up there with like San Fran and up there with Ben Johnson and those Detroit Lions. And those Detroit Lions had a beautiful run game as always. That 75-yard David Montgomery touchdown was beautiful. Dalton, we have Eagles versus Chiefs Monday night this week. So we may have a new number one.
I don't think so.
No, you don't think so? Eagles going to take care of business?
Yeah.
All right. Well, so there you go. What a way to end the show. Bummer.
Sorry.
Dude it.
Niners, great win. Way to kick the Jaguars' butts. Impressive win. Jaguars, Trevor Lawrence, a little scared, a little worried. Sorry.
I don't know if people could tell, but both of us have been on the brink of just like coughing throughout this entire show. So we're going to get out of here. Thanks for tuning in. Like, comment, subscribe. We'll see you next week. Peace. Thanks for watching.